Hello and welcome back to the school. I hope you have enjoyed the summer and hopefully have had some holidays. I'll give you now a welcome speech, and it's actually the same thing that I'm going to tell to all the new students, but I thought it would be good for you to also hear what I have to say. So now I'll start. We are not afraid to work with small problems, and we believe in small changes. This was actually one of the first statements I encountered as the new rector at the school in November 2019. And it came from Vibeke Risberg, and maybe you know her, and she is our senior and very experienced designer and researcher. The sentence came up as we were walking the streets of New York on our way to a symposium on SDG 12 and sustainability in design arranged by the Danish Council in New York. For many reasons, what Vibeke said keeps coming back to me. The most important reason is that it reminds me of values I have to uphold as the school's new rector, but more than that, it sheds light on something I sincerely believe to be true. That small changes can be powerful, indeed, and one of the best ways to empower people to be creative. So welcome again to our school, a place where everyday problem solving and the simple wonders of learning and training, Bildung, and hard work come together, and sometimes end up changing the world. As you know, we're a school where, hopefully, as part of your design training and education, you will have every chance to immerse yourself in your interests and passions. And you will live and learn closely, yet in these times not too closely, with fellow students who share some of the same interests as you. What a privilege. Hopefully, you will also meet people who are very different from you and make friends for life. No doubt, frustration and confusion will accompany you on your educational journey. You'll meet dedicated teachers, and some of you have, of course, already met a lot of them, and researchers who will ask you to move in directions you have never thought you would dare to go. They will tell you strange things. They will not always agree with each other. Systems will not always work, and mistakes will be made. But they are the most dedicated staff I can think of, and they will do everything in their power to give you the best training and education possible. For me, education is a mode of inquiry. It will not always provide you with the final answers, but it will enable and inspire you to be reflective and responsible, and to act with consideration and care. It's a setup that works when your teachers trust that you are working and trying to learn, and when you have faith in your teachers. This makes you lucky devils. Did I just say that? You know, in Danish, we don't actually use the expression lucky devils. Instead, we say, you're a lucky potato. As you might know, Danish philosopher and theologian Søren Kierkegaard, he distinguished between ideas and potatoes, between the soul and the body. So you are potatoes, but fortunately, you are more than that. Søren Kierkegaard, he was born in 1813 and he died in 1855. During that period, the beginning of the 19th century, the human body and the sensuous part of our being were primarily seen as a source of error. However, already in 1735, 21-year-old German philosopher Alexander Baumgarten, he proposed an entirely new science called aesthetics. The science should not be about what we know, Ponta, but about what we sense. And it is based on this science that we came to build art schools and universities, like this one. Aesthetics, or art thinking, deals with our unknown knowns. The knowledge that we can assess through our senses, our cognitive sensitiva. This is knowledge that cannot necessarily be translated into sophisticated sentences. In fact, it is quite often chaotic and potato-like. Art is a way of creating the world. In a design school, we are able to actively process some of this potato-like and obscure knowledge. Using design, we are able to ideally move towards more freedom for people, organisms, and the planet. And let's by all means include all the other planets as well, sententiously, chaotically, and potato-like. And this is why we are allowed to be somewhat of a hula-baloo place. In fact, it's our job. Isn't that great? Still, allow me to dwell a little bit on what I said in the beginning about small things. Because I believe that it is more important than ever to remember that small things, also what we design, can make a big difference. Small means considering the human aspect. First of all, as human beings, we have a limited capacity for worrying. We have a limited cognitive reach as well, for that matter. Some more than others, for sure, but let me give you an example. And this is going to be a bit difficult. In order to be able to memorize a random sequence of numbers, for instance, and I have 3, 9, 7, 4, 6, 9, 7, 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, 7, 4, 5, 6. Most of us have to divide this sentence into 4 or 5 smaller sections. For instance, 3, 9, 7, 4. Or 6, 9, 7, 1, and so on. You're able to manage the sequence of numbers by dividing it into smaller units that can easily be remembered. Today we leave such matters to software programmers. And for instance, I'm able to recall the phone number of the parents of my childhood friend, but not those of my kids, even though I use them all the time. My phone takes care of that for me. Now I just press a name, whereas in the past I used to keep several phone numbers stored in my own memory. We have handled our cognitive capacity to computer software, which allows us to use our limited cognitive resources on other stuff than just meaningless phone numbers. Whether this has gradually made us less intelligent is a good question. But why this need to break down a sequence of numbers? This need to focus on smaller units instead of the longer, rather meaningless sentence. Apart from the fact that we struggle to remember it, I think the answer to this question can also be found in the notion that small units limit our emotional exhaustion. Allow me to quote Ola Rosling in an interview in the Danish newspaper Politiken on the 8th of August this year. He said, quote, "The problem is that the human soul has a limited capacity for worrying. And when the whole world is described as going mad, we're constantly drawing on our resources for worrying." And in the interview, he refers to the book Factfulness from 2017, which sums up the work of his dad, Hans Rosling, who spent his whole life correcting misconceptions about statistics. So, what can we do about this? I think we can inspire hope. Rosling says, by learning about proportions. For instance, by understanding that today We're far better at handling, for example, the pandemic than we were 100 years ago. We can learn to understand the extent of a problem by breaking it down into smaller units, just like I did with the sequence of numbers. Your compassion and capacity for action will diminish when you have almost given up in advance, exhausted by the thought of enormous obstacles. Therefore, we must dare to be specific, and it must be legitimate to work on small problems in schools, at universities, and anywhere else. The world is going mad, most likely even more so over time. But right here in front of me, there's actually something that I can grab onto and perhaps change for the better. We need to remind one another of this. So yes, you must change the world, and you will. You will become more qualified and competent than the generations before you, more qualified and competent than I am. You are already more responsible. You have a more ethical mindset, and perhaps you're even smarter. However, there's also a risk that your system becomes overloaded by the effects of the world that is becoming increasingly uncertain and mad. So, remember to enjoy yourself. Remind yourself that people around you don't have it all figured out either. Know that it is okay to feel bad one day and on top on the world the next. Remember that you must learn to crawl before you can walk. Remember that you make a difference to others even if you don't always feel it. Remember to clean up after yourself. Remember that it is together that we can create a great school. And if you do your best, that's often enough. Nobody is perfect. A big movement requires many small steps. Grab onto what's in front of you. This opportunity to immerse yourself in the field of design. And have a very, very great year. Thank you.